James, thank you so much for joining me today. It is so fantastic to talk with you, especially coming from ESC Insight. I mean, you are the person right at like the heartbeat of Eurovision, I feel.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, and thank you, Zoe, for having me on. Yeah, I've been involved with Eurovision fan media now for about 3 years, but I've been following the contest for about 15
Wow.
in various guises. So now I'm just slightly more in it than I was before. Now I feel like I can't almost get out of it. It encompasses your life and changes everything, changes your routines, everything. So yeah, I guess I'm within it now.
That's amazing though, because you have, and I've seen on your YouTube channel and working with the ESC Insight podcast, you've interviewed some of these incredible singers about their training, preparation for Eurovision, and really like getting to know the performer themselves. How do you feel that that has changed does that color your view of then the
Oh,
performances
massively.
themselves?
Massively, it does. Because, I mean, I don't want to go as far as to say I know these people because there is a
Hmm.
real kind of professional barrier that you have to have when you're media, where you know that fundamentally that conversation is a transactional one. But even so, when you have a better idea of what that person is like, when you've had the chance to chat to them maybe two or three times, get an insight into what they're looking to do on the stage, how they're looking to perform, what emotions they want to capture, then yeah, you view it in a very different way to how you would view it just watching it on the Saturday night with no preparation. You really know the ins and outs at that point. And so you get to watch it with a more analytical lens because you know, oh, on this shot, they want to have like that look at the camera, or they want to hit this note in this sort of way. And so when you're looking at a performance like that, you really start to see what is making something a success and maybe what is not making something a success in a very different way to how you would if you watched a performance green.
Yeah, I've been noticing that as well on my channel because I tend to sort of go in completely blind to a lot of the performances because I really enjoy that sort of first impression of all of the staging from the national final and looking at from that sort of
Mm.
perspective. But did the artist then talk to you about, I mean, this must be months in preparation.
It can be years in
Wow.
preparation for some. There are songs that come to Eurovision that have been formed over years. Artists can have a long-term plan in terms of when they want to go to a national final within kind of their career goals, of course. They may have a label or an agent or somebody in their ear saying, next year it would be good to do this national final, maybe try and go to Eurovision to boost your career, things like that. In the main, the majority of preparation starts really almost as soon as the previous Eurovision is over. So
Okay.
in the summer, you get a lot of these songwriting camps where quite a
Ah.
few of the Eurovision songs that you'll hear in the next year get formed and get written either with the artist or in songwriting teams. And then through various processes, they end up disseminating down to whoever will sing them at the national final stage or just be selected by their broadcaster, because a few countries do that as well. So it really is like a complex, long term system that gets somebody from wanting to be part of Eurovision to standing on that stage in front of 100 million odd people.
Yeah, I mean, there's a massive audience for Eurovision. I think a lot of people that, have no idea about professional singing obviously don't quite understand the level of detail that's involved in planning this sort of performance, especially at a vocal level, that they do start sometimes even learning their songs this year in advance
Mm.
of the actual national final. Are they sharing with you then in I mean, I'm not expecting you to sort of like divulge private sort of conversations that you've had with artists, but do they also talk about their emotions that they're having, like going into these performances?
Oh, definitely. I mean, one of the things that I like to do myself is try and get an understanding of how they're feeling about doing something like this,
Hmm.
because Eurovision is a real pressure cooker of an environment to be in for a singer. I mean,
Yeah.
we do a show called Eurovision Uncovered on the ESC Insight podcast where we did an episode about artists being within the Eurovision environment, feeling all of those internal and external pressures, and then trying to freeze them all out when they go out on the stage, because at that point there is no one with them other than their dance team, maybe the camera people, and 150 million eyes waiting for the note that you don't hit.
Hmm.
So, yeah, a lot of times we'll ask them about how they feel in the preparation, how they get themselves focused and in the zone to perform. And as well, if they've got like a really high note or something that's vocally complex, of course, we'll ask them about that and do the whole, how on earth can you do that? We did an interview with Monroe, which isn't out yet.
She's an amazing singer.
Oh, incredible singer. And just, I mean, 17 years old to have a
Yeah.
voice like that on young shoulders is pretty
Yeah.
impossible to me. But I had to ask her almost directly, how do you figure out you can just do that? How do you even think, I can maybe do that, and then suddenly start doing it in a professional way? I mean, she'll be one of the singers who's probably under the most pressure because of just how technically complex her song is to perform.
Hmm.
But yeah, this is something that everyone feels in different ways at Eurovision. The eyes are on you, and there's no substitute for that.
Yeah, and especially seeing as like all of the vocals at the show need to be live in the final, right? Even the background.
So not the background.
Oh,
Not the background. It used to be that
I thought they
all
were
of
in a
the
vocal
vocals on
booth at the
stage.
back.
So yes, you used to be able to have that, but in 2021 they changed the rules around vocals very, very slightly, and this was a COVID-19 related rule change at
Mm,
the time because they were limiting how many people could travel to that Eurovision. There were still the restrictions in place, so they said that all of your backing vocals, if you wanted, could be pre-recorded. Some still do it live, but you can have those pre-recorded if you want. The only vocal that you have to have live is the lead vocal.
okay.
That is still live.
I mean, that changes things slightly, obviously, in terms of the background. I was under the impression because I remember Ollie, I want to call him Ollie Murs, but I know it's not Ollie Murs because
You
it's a
mean Ollie
different.
Alexander, don't you?
Yes, Ollie Alexander. I
And
got
imagine Ollie Murs doing that song. Yeah, make me dizzy.
I went to one of his concerts actually, and he's a really lovely entertainer, like just such a lovely, lovely dude.
He's a good
Yeah,
showman.
oh my God, definitely. But Ollie Alexander, he had three backing vocalists performing, I think, for Britain last year. And was it do you know what?
It was
I
two
always,
years
it
ago.
was 2 years ago. I always get my years muddled up. I have to be honest. Like, there's just so many performers.
70
Um,
contests, lot to remember.
so many different contests, and I actually, to be honest, I thought that that was then like par for the course that everybody sort of had their background singers then, yeah, in the booth behind the stage. But okay, interesting that they might be pre-recorded.
Yeah, some prefer to do that still, and it really is kind of dealer's choice when it comes to that. But now
Okay,
it's not mandated. It was all the way up until the end of the 2010s that you
okay,
had to have all of those vocals done, but now it's a bit more flexible.
okay, that's interesting. And can you share with us what did Monroe say about how did she prepare for those high notes? Are you allowed to give us that little snippet?
Yeah, we can give. I mean, I can say something around it. I mean, what Monroe said to me is that it was essentially just something she found out she could do, and that
Wow.
it sort of developed naturally for her, and then she was able to get proper training and refine the way her voice works up to the point that she's able to perform this song now. I mean, it wasn't mine too, but a couple of friends of mine also chatted to her while we were there, and Monroe ended up doing the big da 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 part.
Hmm.
And it was effortless, like horrifyingly effortless. The sort of thing that makes you go, oh my God, it's not even a problem for you. This is impossible in my head. It's not even no sweat broken for someone like her to go and sing that. She is an incredibly impressive vocalist, like seriously, seriously good.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to see what she does with that song on the final stage because it's just such an epic song. I feel like it's going, and with all those dances that she had I think she's done one live performance because I couldn't
Yes.
find the national final. So, but with all of those, all of the dances that she had incorporated into that performance was just absolutely insane.
The French delegation often likes to go quite big with their staging.
Ah,
They haven't
cool.
won in 49 years, and they know that they haven't won in 49 years, and they would very much like to change that. They've been on a run in recent years with sending a lot of big singers. So we had
Yeah.
Lazara in 2023, we had Slimane in 2024, another great ballad singer.
Oh, that was beautiful. Yeah.
Last year was Luan, of course,
Hmm.
which was one of the pre-contest favourites, but it didn't go as well on the night in the end. And of course, if you think back to 2021, they had Barbara Pravi, who is sort of the
Okay.
quintessential great female singer of recent Eurovisions who very nearly won, but Måneskin just about stopped her in one of the great Eurovision duels for the crown.
I mean, that they were amazing. I just think their energy, I feel like, won out as well as Damiano's vocals on that day, right?
Yeah, I think the moment they won, to be honest, was the first shot of that staging where Damiano
Hmm.
kind of ushers you along and takes you onto the stage. That is why they won, because that
Okay.
immediately makes you go, come on in with us. We're cool. You're cool. Listen to this song. Listen how sick we are. Look at the vibe in here. Don't you love this? I'm very hot. Enjoy.
Do you know what? I'm sold. I'm sold. I had 12 votes if someone's going to be doing that to
Hey,
me.
they got it right. They got that exactly right.
They definitely got it right. But my question that I asked you before we kind of started recording was how do you, I feel like that vocals have become more important in this show. And I know that vocals, obviously, it's a singing competition, but I feel like this year there are way less fun, sort of funny songs than there are just incredible. And even the sort of maybe you could call Grease like to be honest, I don't understand, but it looked like it was a funny song. And then he broke out into this like beautiful ballad bridge in the middle of it,
Mm.
like just to kind of go like, I can really sing as well. Why do you feel like singing is becoming such an important, like so much more important, and why?
There are so many ways you could take that conversation.
Yeah.
There's the competition aspect in the
Hmm.
sense of I don't believe it's I believe it's no longer possible for you to win Eurovision without being a terrific technical singer.
Okay.
I just don't think it's possible. I mean, if you look at the recent years, a song like Cha 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 by Carrier, which was this
Yeah.
huge, everybody wanted this to win. It gained 376 televote points, which is beyond Kalish Orchestra in Ukraine in 2022, which was obviously massive for other reasons, is the biggest televote score we can see in recent memory.
Hmm.
But that didn't win because Karia was not a great technical singer. And the
Mm.
juries didn't give it above 150 points because while they appreciated how good the song was and how good the energy was, one of the criteria that jurors are asked to vote on is the vocal capacity of the performer.
Okay.
And Lorraine, who he was competing against, there was no question about her technical capacity, and she gained about 340 points in the jury because
Wow.
her vocals were just that good. So it's very difficult to win this contest if you haven't got a great voice. And so for all of these countries and broadcasters who naturally want to win the Eurovision Song Contest, by and large, they're now trying to find their best vocalists because that
Um,
is the best ticket to winning. Although, of course, if you're going to do it on a vocal competition, you really do have to have the best vocalist. And that's even harder with so many countries sending so many good singers now.
yeah, that's so interesting. I didn't realize that it was, I mean, it go figure, right? That like the standard of the vocals had to be at some point within the jury decision.
Mm.
But I just noticed, and maybe this also has something to do with the fact that we've got like Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent. We just have so many extremely good talent shows out there for singers. The voice and the way that sort of singing has become so important. Um, that's also coming over through to Eurovision and kind of almost like boosting the standard of the vocals as
It
well.
is, and in a really direct way, actually, because a lot of the artists you see on the Eurovision stage often come through that talent show pipeline. So Asila from Belgium won The Voice in Belgium last year. Jiva from
Hmm.
Azerbaijan won The Voice in Azerbaijan recently. Israel's selection is a talent show, straight up.
Yes, he won. Well, he won. Not Israel's Got Talent or something like that. It's called something
It's
else,
called
isn't
The
it?
Next Star,
The Next
but he won
Star.
that.
Yeah.
So that pipeline is really, really well established. And often, I mean, even in the UK, there was a long period where we were looking through the list of people who've been on talent shows. I think back to Michael Rice was a talent show alumnus. He'd been on, I think it was The Voice. So a lot of
Okay.
these countries are looking towards the talent show circuit for a great vocalist. Also, because those vocalists want a bit of a career boost, of course. They're coming off a
Hmm.
talent show, they want longevity. that is far beyond just being on TV on a Saturday night for a few weeks. Eurovision is a very good ticket to longevity if you do well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And as you're saying that, I do know, I think Romania was also on The Voice as well, wasn't she?
I believe so, yeah.
And also Germany as well. Sarah Engels was also on. I think she's been doing the tour of Moulin Rouge as well, but she's come up from that way. So,
Mm.
I mean, go figure, right? Because it's like the next step. They've already got a lot of that audience participation within their own countries. I mean, obviously you can't vote for your own country, but you sort of have that standing already especially if you've won that.
Exactly. And from the organizational perspective at Eurovision, it really benefits them to have good vocalists because
Hmm.
Eurovision, certainly in the past 5 years, has really wanted to be serious. There is a real want
Yeah.
for Eurovision to be seen in Europe as the platform for great new original artists to break through. I mean, Måneskin, we spoke about them before. They had an absolutely colossal breakthrough off the back of winning Eurovision.
Yeah.
Karia has had a very strong career since being on Eurovision. Baby Lasagna 2 years ago, who won the public vote, has been coming back to Eurovision and building a career that way. And the Eurovision team want to be seen as people who find great singers and great artists and give them a platform. And that's really a world away from what Eurovision used to be maybe 20 years ago, where it was seen as much more of a novelty competition
Hmm.
in kind of the culture. And they really want that novelty thing to kind of go away. I mean, yeah, there are novelty songs here and there, and that's still part of the fun. But I think Eurovision is much happier talking about Spotify data
Oh, yeah.
and TikTok numbers and engagement than they ever have been before. And the best way to achieve that in a wider music industry sense is to find stars.
Oh, that makes complete sense, especially if we're looking at Spotify and we're not, especially in the way that we're listening more and doing less watching of the performances, especially in that sense,
Mm.
that they need to also work well as a song away from the entire performance, and the performance kind of boosts that in the end, rather than being sort of the juggernaut that, oh, you've got to watch all the effects going on while you're enjoying the performance.
I mean, they would want both.
Yeah.
Realistically, they just want to have as much cut through culturally as possible with the Eurovision entries. So if a song is a great radio hit, well, then that's fantastic. And Eurovision will speak for months about how much of a radio hit it is, I tell you. But of course, it's a TV show fundamentally.
Yeah.
And the most important thing on the night is, yes, the vocals are part of it, but still it's that blend of the vocal, the staging package, the way the singer connects with the camera, the types of effects they use, the types of camera shots they use, and all of that fusing to form the experience and
Hmm.
the impression, which is what, at the end of the day, that's what people vote on. That's what you earn points on.
Yeah. Absolutely. When you're looking at the entire performance, especially on the night. So, James, you're someone that follows Eurovision right from the beginning or the start of the
Yeah.
season. And I think like I kind of, to be honest, consider myself a bit of a lay person in terms of knowing exactly how many performances these artists actually go through in order to reach the final Eurovision stage. How many performances would someone who has qualified from the national final, how many performances are we looking at between the national finals and the actual Eurovision final?
I mean, let me respond to that question with another question. Does
Okay.
that count just their TV performances, or is that every performance that they do?
I would you even be aware of every performance that they do?
We could take a guess.
Okay.
If it's every performance that they do, I'd say if they were a singer who was tipped to have a very strong chance of doing well at the contest, if their broadcaster really believed in them and were willing to send them out on quite long-winded promotional tours, I'd say over 100 times they will have to perform that song in a, and that's not including all the rehearsals to get to the national final, by the way. I'd
Mm-hmm.
say from selection, maybe 100 times. If you
Wow.
think about all the rehearsing for Eurovision itself,
Yeah.
if you think about the TV appearances they may do, appearing on podcasts, going on interviews, sponsor things and activations. You know, we know of singers who, for example, the Georgian singers were in a Georgian shopping mall a few days ago to do a performance in the shopping mall and like a little stage in the
Fantastic.
middle. These things are happening all the time. These artists are kept incredibly busy. On average, I would say from Eurovision selection onto the final, they're probably performing this song once a day.
Wow. Wow.
They'll have some off days, but there'll be some days where they're doing this 3 or 4 times.
Uh, I mean, that's just incredible, especially from a stamina perspective. I think from that alone, that's telling us that you really can only be a professional singer and perform at Eurovision in order to really like look after yourself to that standard that's required for you to sing every day or even every second day. Some of these songs are really, really huge, and obviously you've got travel and things in between.
Yeah, a lot of travel. I think, people don't actually see the level of travel and work that these artists have to do from selection on.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, I've mentioned the TV and the podcast side of things, but you have pre parties where you go off to cities and you perform your song for Eurovision fans live. And when you're there, you're subjected to this cavalcade of interviews and media appearances and promo and all the things the broadcaster wants you to do to try and keep the momentum around your entry. When you get to Eurovision week itself, you want to make sure that your singer is the one being talked about by the commentators when they say this is one of the big favorites tonight. You want that to be you and not somebody else. So there is an awful lot of vocal work and vocal strain and vocal rest that's required. And I mean, I remember when we spoke for our thing last week talking about how vocals were a living instrument.
Yeah.
At Eurovision, that's really, really important because these singers are, largely speaking, 24/7 media properties from
Wow.
March until May.
Wow. I mean, even just to be honest, that makes me like a bit like, whew, like really feeling for them in this moment. I mean, I already felt for them, but like thinking about it, I mean, in terms of that kind of level, and you're, at the heart of this, so you're really well aware of all of the media junkets and stuff like that they're going to before these sorts of performances.
Yeah, I'm one of the idiots they have to come and speak to. Uh, so really, I'm just causing them more work, which sometimes I think about and feel slightly guilty about. But at the same time, you obviously, from my side, you try and give them a nice experience. But it's part of the job being
Yeah.
a Eurovision artist is the promo, it's the press, it's the weight in a way of representing your country and taking on their hopes and their fears and their doubts.
Hmm.
And trying to do the best that you can because you don't want to go home and be the person who came last. And
I know. I just honestly, I just feel for every single one of them, especially when you're watching it. You're like, you just know that that person that came last put just as much effort into the person that came first, and
exactly.
it's just heartbreaking sometimes. But I mean, obviously, right? Like life's unfair, and it is a competition in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a few of the artists in last year's batch, and they were calling
Hmm.
it the Eurovision Song Showcase when they were internally chatting about it. They were trying to remove the competition aspect sort of
Okay.
mentally because they were like, well, let's treat it as we're going to go up and get the chance to sing our song. And whatever the public and the juries think of it is kind of secondary. We still got up there and we still sang our song and we still felt good and we still performed in the best way that we could.
Yeah.
And whatever happens there is kind of irrelevant. Of course, from a sense of watching Eurovision and being a fan, of course, it's entirely relevant what the results are. But for the artists, there's no massive difference between coming second and coming last. The
Hmm.
only difference is really if you win from a Eurovision perspective.
Ah, okay. In what way?
Well, nobody gets paid to do Eurovision by Eurovision. There's no prize money.
I mean, that in itself just really like makes me so surprised considering how much money they earn from from the TV, from the sponsorship and all that sort of stuff going in. So I'm sort of thinking, why do they do it? But obviously it's for exposure.
For exposure,
Yeah.
like all of us in creative industries are very
Yeah.
familiar with. Yeah, it's for the kind of exposure that you cannot get anywhere else.
Hmm.
So Eurovision is the most watched non-sporting event on earth.
Wow.
When you are standing on that stage singing, you are the most watched person in the world at that moment for 180 seconds.
Hmm.
There is nothing that can recreate that. Spare for maybe doing the Super Bowl halftime show. That just doesn't exist in the music industry. To have that opportunity is absolutely priceless, not just for what it does for your career, of course, but when you're 40 years down the line, when you're reflecting on all the things you've done, you can show your kids and your grandkids, this is me. I was on the Eurovision stage. I performed this song. I enjoyed it. Here's how I did. That is
Incredible.
irreplicable.
Admittedly, I had someone in a masterclass recently, and as I've realized about this memory, I can't quite remember her name, but she represented Greece at Eurovision
Oh, wow.
30 or 40 years ago. And just absolutely incredible. She said exactly the same thing. It was like one of the biggest highlights of her life. Incredible moment. She never took it to be, now she teaches singing, which is fantastic, but she never took it further than Eurovision. She didn't do very well in the final. But it was, again, a hugely standout moment within her own career, but obviously before it became the sort of juggernaut that it really is now. Whereas back then, if you didn't win, I mean, there wasn't the same sort of online presence in Instagram and YouTube where your sort of
No,
performances
no.
kind of lived on. It's sort of like you had the TV show and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, Eurovision in pre 2000s, Eurovision was just really one night. It
Hmm.
was an opportunity for European broadcasters to save money on good Saturday night TV by pooling together their resources and creating a show. I mean, that was the entire origin of Eurovision.
Fantastic.
Was this kind of pan-European collaboration, plus also World War II was bad and maybe let's move on kind of thoughts.
It's a good thought.
But when the kind of the digital age began, Eurovision saw an opportunity in the same way that most other media properties have to become an all year round lifestyle brand almost. I mean, Eurovision has its connotations, it's kind of present in various areas of the culture. Eurovision has a massive social media department now
Yeah.
and a digital team, it's one of their
Oh, well.
largest. Uh, Everything around Eurovision is not so much predicated on the night. Of course, that's the highlight, but in terms of how do these songs do in the lead up? How do these songs do afterwards? Eurovision tried to put together a live tour this year. It's not going to happen now, but that was one of their ambitions, was to take Eurovision to the people in a more direct way.
Fantastic.
They are very, very keen on expanding Eurovision as much as they can to be this great big media property. And that, in theory, will have benefits for the singers, of course, because they get to stay within that Eurovision environment if they want, or use it as a bigger springboard to do whatever it is they want to do in music.
That's fantastic. It almost seems like it's a slightly slightly a longer lasting alternative to say Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent because you are actually staying within the world, as you're saying, from March to May. You actually have quite a long section of time where you're able to show different avenues and actually get more of an opportunity. I feel shows like maybe The Voice and those sorts of, I mean, I've auditioned for them and their contracts are fairly crazy. I'm
Mm.
assuming Eurovision is fairly similar, but you get more opportunity to show what you can do and to get out there and perform than you do on the other shows.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned contracts. Eurovision definitely does have strong contracts
Yeah.
for their performers. When you compete at the national finals, you basically agree to the Eurovision contract before you show up because you've
Hmm.
got to take the selection if you get it. And then you have to do all manner of media appearances with the Eurovision team, of course. They need to get their slice of you for their own promotion
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
various other things. You have a contract with the your own broadcaster as well that's on the side because you'll need to do TV in Norway if you're from Norway, or you'll need to do a certain amount of media appearances here and media appearances there and sponsor activations here and there because money is invested in
Hmm.
each of these entries. I mean, it's a total tangent, but the money invested in some of these entries can be massive. I mean, there have been entries in which over 1 million has been spent on the whole thing when you
Wow.
take into account the entry fees for the countries, the hotel costs, the accommodation costs,
Yeah.
the staging costs, which can be hundreds of thousands of euros now comfortably. You know, some going towards 1 million
Wow.
because of all of the associated costs of props and effects and pyro. And a lot of that money is therefore provided by sponsorship or other
Yeah.
commercial interests in the same way everything else is. there's a lot of money involved. And therefore, artists are kind of, in a way, at the mercy of those forces. But then from their perspective, they have to protect their vocal, they have to protect their energy as much as they can while dealing with all of these different demands that are placed on them by being a part of the biggest music event in the world.
That's incredible. Have you seen in the, no, I'm just very curious from a background perspective because there's not that many people out there who talk who talk about the way. I don't really see very many people like yourself and like with ESC Insight really get to peek behind the curtain of Eurovision.
Mm.
Do you notice that they've also got like their vocal coaches with them? Have they got their vocal trainers with them when you're meeting with them?
And not usually in a media perspective. We don't
Okay.
usually see a vocal coach around with them. We know that there are some countries who do bring their vocal coaches out with them.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, if they have the budget to do so, which is definitely predicates this if they're able to do it. But a lot of singers will bring a vocal team out with them. They'll be advising them. They'll be telling them whether they're on vocal rest for the day and they need to shut up their interviews. We've had a few interviews before that have been scheduled and then fallen through because we've had a message going, nope, they're on vocal rest now
Okay.
today. The vocal team has been in touch. They're going to be resting. We need to prepare for the performance. And we understand that. So there are definitely some aspects of that. And I mean, the other flip side of this, potentially even the darker side in some ways, is because that vocal has to be ready for the live shows,
Yeah.
singers will do whatever it takes to ensure that vocal is ready. I know of multiple singers last year who were using steroid injections
Yeah.
to get their voice into some kind of shape because they were just shot.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, the Ukrainian singer last year was one of those. He wrote about it in kind of like a blog post after the contest, pretty in depth about the amount of his day that was entirely based on protecting his voice, whether that was steroid injections, hot teas, whatever he needed to try and get his voice to some form of working order for the live shows, because the live show is airing and they're not going to move it for you.
Yeah.
You're ready or you're not.
And as you're saying, it's a ginormous opportunity. Like, I don't think, the biggest opportunity for singers to really have to get in front of that many people. And as you're saying, it really can make or break, well, maybe not break a career, but it will make your career if you have a really, really good performance.
It can change your life if you have an incredible performance.
Hmm.
And you also have to remember is what's unique about Eurovision is for every other big music event, like the Grammys, for example, there's no requirement for artists to be spaced around different countries. In
Hmm.
the Grammys, it's like 75% of the performers are American. Maybe Troye Sivan will show up. There'll be like two European pop stars, and maybe like Zara Larsson will appear, and they'll
Hmm.
have like a K-pop act, right? At Eurovision, you have one act from every competing country. And some of those competing countries, like Moldova or San Marino or Albania, or I'm just throwing out examples, but countries that aren't in the Western music tradition, who don't have as
Hmm.
developed of a music industry, who don't have the big kind of industrial resource that America or the UK or Sweden has
Yeah.
to put musicians out into the cultural environment, the opportunity for them is colossal. It is simply the biggest thing that any of these singers could do, to be from a small town in the Balkans or a small town in the Nordics or a small town in Latvia or wherever, and suddenly to go from wherever you were to this massive stage with so many eyes on you around the world. And if you impress them, well, then your life simply will not be the same tomorrow.
Incredible. I think it's just so interesting, especially you're saying about the lengths that the singers will go to. I mean, I do know about steroid injections with the cortisone
Yeah.
being actually injected into the vocal fold itself in order to get the vocal fold swelling down so that they can just perform. It's a very, very scary procedure where they go in through the side of the
Yeah.
larynx and there and actually into the vocal fold. But as you're saying, these people, when you have this sort of opportunity, you do whatever it takes to get on that stage and perform.
Absolutely. You cannot not be on that stage when you have that
Hmm.
chance, right? And that is the approach that everybody takes within the Eurovision system. The
Yeah.
broadcasters have an asset to protect in the artist. They want to make sure that they're on stage in the best possible way. Their teams, of course, want them to be on stage in the best possible way, not just for them, but because, of course, it benefits everybody involved. So, yeah, there is no real alternative to being on the Eurovision stage. And that does bring an awful lot of pressure because this is a huge live television production that cannot stop for anyone.
Hmm.
But at the same time, would be irrevocably weakened if anyone wasn't part of it. And it's this really unique balance that leads to a lot of pressure and stress on both sides because everybody wants to be there, but they're trying to make sure that happens and have nothing get in the way.
Hmm.
Because one thing getting in the way, one note wrong, and months of work suddenly aren't as valuable anymore because one thing went wrong.
And it just, but it goes to show, like you're saying about the way that they were going and saying that it was a Eurovision showcase rather than a Eurovision competition.
Mm.
That change in the mindset makes a huge difference to the way that you go into that performance. Because ultimately having that sort of that thought of like, oh my God, this is it. This is so many million going on my back. It's my only opportunity is probably going to cause you to then flub that note at the end. Whereas if you go in saying, this is just another one of the 100 performances that I've done in the months leading up to this, then it's about having fun. And the muscle memory will most probably, kick in when you're mid performance and have to belt that really big note.
Absolutely. You want to try and make this as comfortable as possible. And the last thing you need to do when, frankly, there's enough pressure just to turn up on the stage and make sure you're
Absolutely.
singing all right, just your own song. But imagine then adding the pressure of people coming up to you and saying, oh, the odds say you're not going to qualify. Or, oh, people say that you're not going to win the contest, even though you said you would. Or, is this song really the one? Or oh, is that staging really good? Because we've seen it and it's a bit like, do you really need to also take on that pressure? You
Who's
know,
saying that to these people?
I mean, look, the Eurovision media landscape can be really brutal on artists in certain countries.
Wow.
I think back to there were an act called Mia and Dion from the Netherlands 3 years ago who were quite highly touted. The Netherlands had had a very good streak of qualifying to that point. They'd been coached by Duncan Lawrence, who'd won the competition in 2019
Fantastic.
for the Netherlands.
Yep.
They were this duet. They had a really nice kind of like alt indie ballad song. I really liked it. They went to a pre-party. They had an off night, to be fair, and the Dutch press got a hold of it and absolutely trashed them. And in the most brutal way, both singers have come out and said that the whole experience ended up being traumatizing for them because they just became public enemy number one in the Netherlands, and they went out in the semi-finals. I mean, crashed out, to be honest.
Oh.
Got only less points than we have fingers on our hands, and the whole experience became the Netherlands going, how on earth in a country with so many talented musicians did we pick these ones? That was what they were being confronted with every day.
Oh gosh.
The pressure when it goes the wrong way can be brutal on these people, and a lot of them are young as well, who've never been in
Mm.
this kind of spotlight. Eurovision definitely is like this incredibly bright thing, don't get me wrong, but like all bright things, it has a dark shadow,
Yeah.
and there are two sides to everything. And the fact is, Eurovision is a very, very big spotlight for it to go wrong in.
There's, I think leading up to this final performance, that's just, yeah, absolutely. Like you're saying, I mean, if you really do flub that high note on the day, it's going to become a meme. You know that it's
Yeah,
going to the internet lives on forever, and unfortunately, lots of people are
exactly.
going to be, going to be talking about it. I really love that on your I'm looking at the model for this semi-final one. Can you
Okay.
just talk us through maybe these first actually all of your top 10 are very, very strong vocalists.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a tricky question. Are these your favorites? Because the
No.
model is not opinion based. But okay, you just said no.
Well, it's not based on who my favorites are.
Yeah.
It's simply based on data that we're able to find about the contest and the lead up. So that's the current betting odds at any given time,
Hmm.
things like the Eurovision World Poll we use and people voting on who they want to win the contest. There are things like the scoreboard app that's incorporated, things like Euro Jury, which is run where they get people to vote on who their favourites are that have either been to Eurovision or been part of teams before. We try and pull all of that and then put it through kind of historical patterns of how countries vote for each other and what kind of songs they vote for. And it all kind of gets put into a mush and it comes out with numbers. So what you see in the model is purely the best approximation we can make of what we think would happen at that moment now. But
Hmm.
it also can't really predict the future as such, in that
Yeah.
you don't know how the song's going to be staged. Big one. We certainly don't know how the vocalist will sing on the night. I mean, yeah, we obviously hope they'll be perfect, but they might not be. And
Well, we
that
have
has a
exactly. We have seen that in the past where they've actually been extremely vocally fatigued when they've got on stage, and actually their final performance, like the national final performance, has been far stronger vocally than the actual Eurovision final.
massively. I mean, one of the best examples was last year. Australia or Gojo was heavily, heavily tipped to make the final.
Hmm.
There was not a person you could speak to who would have said that they weren't going to make it. They opened semi-final 2 in Basel. So
Hmm.
first prime slot, everything looking up, and the performance was just not there. And whether it was nerves or whether it was something had gone wrong with the voice, there was definitely something that felt off. And in such an extroverted staging, that standard stood out even more. And I remember looking over to someone after the performance ended. We watched it in the press room in Basel. I looked over and said, "They're not going to make it." And sure enough, they didn't, because
Mm,
you cannot predict what a vocal will be like on the night.
yeah.
You only get one chance. The vast majority of people watching these have never heard your song before.
Hmm.
That's their impression. If your impression isn't the best, well, neither's theirs.
Yeah, there we Oh, well, there you go. Who are your top who are you can you give me like your top three or your top five? Who do you think's vocally really strong
Vocally
this year?
strong. I mean, look, there are a lot of great singers. We've already chatted about just
I
how
know,
high
I
the
know.
level is.
Honestly, I feel like pretty much all of them, except maybe like two or three, are extremely vocally strong this year.
So, I mean, the examples that I would always throw up straight away are Denmark and
Yeah.
Søren Søndergaard Lund and how good he is as a singer, and particularly when he belts in that middle eight and he
Oh.
completely like lets the chains off. Oh
Mm-hmm.
Lord. Leleka is a frighteningly good vocalist. She will be holding the longest note in the history of Eurovision. In the middle eight, that note is about 20 seconds long by my count. It turns into
Fantastic.
about 12 different notes. She probably
Uh-huh.
scales about 1.5 octaves doing it. Yeah, it's something. We've heard it
I'm
live a couple of
excited.
times. Yeah, it's you hear it and go, ooh, all of the goosebumps start going. So they're the two I would immediately kind of say are like, wow. But you could go through this whole lineup
Yeah.
and think of all the great singers, like the girls from Lelek, who obviously harmonized their way through the performance. You have Felicia from Sweden, who I think
Hmm.
actually is very underrated as a vocalist. I've never seen her miss a note, and she performed at her national final very ill.
So I hear. I mean, you could really clearly hear that, but as a professional vocal, that the professional that she is, she did a wonderful job of covering it or singing through it, whichever way you want to call it.
Oh,
But it was
yeah.
still a strong vocal in the end.
She was still absolutely on every single note.
Yeah.
Only I think if you were a really knowledgeable person on vocals like yourself, obviously, would you maybe hear those kinds of wobbles. So she was able to get through it, and that's a testament to how good she is. Obviously, France, I mean, we haven't even mentioned Monroe yet, and
Yeah.
that's an obvious, goes without saying how good she is. Sal Da Vinci from Italy, who is going to nail every single note on the night, and is just a 50-year super experienced professional
Yeah.
who will not let you down. You could go through two-thirds of this lineup and make an argument about just how good they are vocally.
Yeah.
Romania, Latvia, Albania. The guy from Albania is amazing live.
He like absolutely incredible vocals. Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, we've been to a couple of these pre-parties where they perform these songs live in Amsterdam and in London to do interviews and get an idea
Cool.
of how they're sounding before we get out to Vienna next week. And goodness me, I mean, the level of the vocals is
Hmm.
fantastic. We're at a point now in Eurovision where if your vocal is even 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, we all notice it because it's like we've been dining on caviar for 3 years. We've become so used to this like high caviar diet that if someone gave us a grilled cheese sandwich, we'd probably just turn our nose up at it and go, "Oh, what is this?"
Exactly. I want a little bit more of those professional singers over there.
Can we have a minute?
Yeah.
Can we have some extra professional singing, please? I mean, I'm not sure this is cutting it. I mean, look, there's still a place for people who aren't technically great singers. Like Moldova is a rap song, but it's still
Hmm.
phenomenal. You know, Tommy Cash last year was second in the televote. Baby Lasagna and Carrier, not the
Yeah.
greatest technical singers, but won the televote in their respective years. From a public vote perspective, you don't have to be a great technical singer. But from a jury perspective and everything else and wanting to make the right impression, yeah, at this point, you have to be top of the range good.
So we've been talking a little bit about the model. Can you tell us a little bit about, because now this is where it really starts to ramp up, right? In
Yeah.
the lead up to Eurovision, ESCinsight.com, can you tell us a little bit about what everyone can expect to see on the blog, on the podcast? Where should we be watching out?
Oh, heaps. We have so much going on over the next couple of weeks as we go through Eurovision. It's hard really to keep track.
Yeah,
Uh, I mean, just on like my end, we have the start of the Eurovision Uncovered National Final Series soon. These are
amazing.
3 documentaries we've gone out to the countries to make. So the first one is going to be from Croatia, where we've been embedded within one of the national final entries, so fully backstage.
Wow.
We've been in the viewing room, which has never been captured before. We have been in the green room, which has never been captured before. All like the pre-visualization, all of the planning that goes into the entry, everything is captured in this. So it's a really unique look at how a Eurovision song actually comes together, as
Wow.
opposed to just seeing the end product. And we've got a couple more coming in the future days and weeks. There will be articles going out about obviously this year's contest, but things like how the show is produced from a TV standpoint, how there are changes to the rules and the juries, and kind of anything else we find when we get there. I mean, the beauty of going out to Eurovision is that the story is really live and fast moving, and we're going
Hmm.
to see things that we've never seen before. I mean, every year, things like the staging directors try to amp it up, the singers try to amp it up. There is always something new to look at. Our goal, I suppose, at ESC Insight is to try and be the first people on the scene to tell you why it matters.
That's fantastic. And is this all going to be on your YouTube channel and over on the website, escinsight.com?
Yeah, on the YouTube channel for ESC Insight, our website, which is escinsight.com, we have the podcasts, various podcasts which go out on the podcast feed, which is available in every good audio platform that you prefer to listen to, so Spotify, Apple, and all the rest. And you will either hear me or someone else on the Insight team. We have 3 going out to Vienna to bring you all the coverage from there. And we'll also have a daily, now I think about this, we'll have a daily show from Vienna
Wow.
that I am producing. So that will have a combination of what we're thinking about, what's going on, interviews with the artists as we get to chat to them through the week. And yeah, really kind of the inside ticket into Vienna, basically.
That sounds absolutely, and you get to do it in one of, like, personally one of my favorite cities.
Yes.
And you just get the beauty of being in this insanely stunning city and also to enjoy incredible music. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, James, for joining us. I'm going to link everything in the show notes down below because I think it's just so fantastic what you're doing. And I love the way that you're showing us so much more than what we're just seeing from the performance perspective. I think that the artists deserve that. I think they deserve us to see and peek behind the curtain and really see the blood, sweat, and tears that goes
Mm.
into these entries, because these 3 minutes on stage, as you're saying, are a year in the making. And I wanted to invite you on today because I wanted to show everybody that it isn't just about this one moment that goes into it. It is about all of the planning and all of this, the talent that we see in this one performance comes from months and months and months, as you're saying, if not years of rehearsal and practice up to that moment. And ultimately, it comes down to being a mentally strong individual and
Yes.
performer on the day, but also being a very talented I use the word talented with a pinch of salt, but I'm meaning talented in a way that's, hard work, putting in all the effort, doing all of the training in advance, and being this sort of like this all-round vocalist as well. And so thank you so much, James, for joining me.
That's no problem. I mean, if there's one thing you want to know about me and what I do, it's that the Eurovision performer has 3 minutes to impress you, and my job is to tell you about every other minute that led them there.
I absolutely love that. So thank you so much, James. And you can check everything out at escinsight.com.